All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Belvedere City Council Committee of the Whole meeting, February 24th, 2025. If the clerk will help me with the roll call, please.
Albertini,
Here.
Brereton absent, Fleury,
Here.
Frank,
Here.
Freeman absent, Gramkowski,
Here.
McGee,
Here.
Mulhall absent, Peterson,
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
7 present.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have anybody registered for public comment this evening. We have no public forum either. Oh, we do? Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. Item A, well, that's not, actually looks like it's a part of it to me, but item A, we have a presentation tonight of badge by Police Chief Woody to Police Officer Lara Parra in recognition of completing his probationary period. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman. First of all, I would like to thank Alderman Frank for helping me get this badge open. Apparently, they make that plastic a little bit thicker than I'm used to, so I appreciate that. What's it? Apparently not. So I appreciate you giving us a few minutes to celebrate Jesus here successfully completing his 18th month probationary period. Seems like a long time, and it is probably a lot longer for you than the rest of us, but just a moment in history, give you an idea of where we start and how we got to today. Jesus applied with the Belvedere Police Department in May of 2023. He went through the hiring process, and in August he was sworn in as a Belvedere police officer. Over the next 4 months, he attended Sauk Valley Basic Academy, completed his training there, came back to the Belvedere Police Department, where he went through steps 1 through 4 with a field training officer, literally sitting next to him as he learned the fundamentals of policing. Once he completed step 4 of FTO, he went to step 5, where he was until the 18th of February this month, where what that means is you're on your own, but you're still on probation. So if you screw up bad enough, things don't turn out so well. But Jesus did a great job on his own those remaining months, got him to February 18th of this year, where he successfully completed his probation. So this evening, I'm happy to provide Jesus with his permanent badge, with his badge number, 428, this evening. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. So Chief told me I have to give a few words, so I guess that's in order. So I'm here, right? So today I received my badge. I pledge to uphold the law with integrity, serve my community with compassion, and protect those in my community. I would like to also thank all my trainers who are not here, but I would like to thank my coworkers, especially my shift, including Sarge, for always helping me and supporting me along the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Flipping the page, reports of officers, boards, and special committees. Item 1, public safety unfinished business. We have none. Item 2, public safety new business. Item A, police department update. Chief Woody.
Thank you again, Mayor.
Good evening.
Since my last report, Officer Stansford is still in step 5 of the FTO program, currently on solo patrol. He's scheduled to complete probation in November of this year. He's also been selected as our newest SWAT member. He'll go through a 40-hour basic SWAT training probationary period before being operational. Probationary Officer Hobart Jones is also in Step 5, and he too is scheduled to complete probation in November of 2025. Now, the reason why that is our lateral officers actually have a shorter probationary period than our entry-level officers who have never been police before. The rationale behind that is the 4 months that our entry-level officers have to go to basic academy doesn't leave us a whole lot of time once they complete that for evaluation if their probationary period was 12 months like our lateral officers. So our entry-level police officers are 18 months, our lateral police officers are only 12. The police department currently has 9 police officer positions to fill. We have 4 officers currently on leave. So far in 2025, the police department has proctored 7 written tests for police officer. We're in the process of doing 4 backgrounds. We have 1 entry-level applicant completing his psych and medical. If he passes, he'll be appointed a probationary police officer and attend basic academy in May. We have another applicant who is certified, and if he passes all parts of the hiring process, can start FTO immediately. The 2 remaining applicants would have to attend a 16-week basic academy if they pass the hiring process. We're on multiple waiting lists for basic academy in May and September for this year, and we are still working with Ullman Ernest for the patrol remodel. That concludes my update for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, any questions for Chief Woody regarding any of the information? All right, hearing none, thank you, Chief. Item B, Fire Department update. Chief Shadle, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Just will report over the last 30 days some data from the fire department. In the past 30 days, we've responded to 292 calls for service, so just under 10 a shift. Of those, 2 were structure fires, a car fire, 218 EMS calls, 7 car accidents with injuries, 16 public service assists, 3 power lines down, 1 carbon monoxide incident, and 1 gas leak. So of those 218 EMS calls, we transported 180 patients, emergency transport to area hospitals. 16 went to Javon Bay, 79 to St. Anthony, 21 to Swedish American in Rockford, and 64 to UW Belvedere here in town. I thought I'd just take a moment, and every month I say we have X number of EMS calls. This wasn't a particularly differential month or anything, but I pulled some of the provider impressions so you guys can see what type of calls. This month we responded to 9 cardiac arrests, 8 chest pain or cardiac arrhythmias, 19 breathing difficulty or respiratory distress, 3 syncope and collapse, that's just passing out, 12 altered mental status, 1 stroke, 6 people with high sugar or low sugar, 4 seizures, 6 people with high blood pressure or low blood pressure, 4 seizures, I already said that, 6 people with various types of hemorrhaging, 17 various injuries, 13 with weakness, and then 8 with psychological issues or suicidal ideations. I know each week it's always a big number, and we just fly right through it. I just wanted to give you examples of a normal month. So EMS billing wise, month to date, we've received $79,873. That brings our fiscal year to date to about 1.2 million, and over our past 12 months, total is just under 1.4 million. So this week here, we've been working a lot, and we always train both police and fire on active threats, active shooters, and just mass casualty incidents, because it requires a great deal of coordination between law enforcement and rescue. So we have a great opportunity coming up this week. Lieutenant Travis Tangy lined up through University of Illinois command level training for active shooter incident management. and also partnered with the schools. So this week, we're command staff from BFD, BPD, the Sheriff's Office, Cherry Valley PD, Freeport School, Cherry Valley Fire, and then District 100 leadership from all those areas. We're meeting together for a 16-hour class, 2 days. One is just first responders, and the second is first responders with schools. And having that level of coordination, we've all trained quite a bit individually, and PD and fire have trained quite a bit together, but just to pull everything together is going to be a great opportunity. And having really good instructors come from U of I to do that is awesome. So to conclude, at the last meeting of the Boone County ETSB, so it's the 911 board. I've been on that board, I think, since 2018. But last meeting, I was chosen as the president of the board, so I thought I'd mention that. And that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chief Shadle? Any comments? All right, Chief, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And tell Lieutenant Tangy thank you as well, please. All right, item C, replacement of bulletproof windshield on armored vehicle. In your packet dated February 24th, 2025, is a memo from Chief Woody regarding the replacement of the bulletproof windshield on our armored vehicle. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Specifically, the SWAT vehicle has bulletproof glass, which includes the windshield. One of the panels on the windshield is delaminating. I included a definition of delamination for your reference. SWAT Mod has provided an estimate to replace the windshield panel at a cost of $12,492 as outlined in the attached invoice. SWAT Mod is the sole source provider for this bulletproof panel in the country. If approved, the cost of the replacement windshield would come from the Belvidere Police Department Federal Asset Forfeiture Account, which has seized assets from narcotic enforcement. I would request a motion to authorize the purchase of replacement bulletproof glass for the armored SWAT vehicle from SWAT Mod at a cost of $12,492 to be paid for from the Federal Asset Forfeiture Account.
Okay, if I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Fleury, second by Alderman Peterson. Thank you both. Any questions, any comments on the motion? Feel free to ask. Alderman Peterson?
Thanks, Mayor. Just one question, Chief. What would the account, the federal asset forfeiture account look like after this expense?
We'll have approximately $125,000 remaining.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. All righty. If there are no other questions, we have the motion on the floor in front of you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed, motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. And we also have, moving on, item D, sale of fire department vehicle. In your packet was a memo from Chief Shadle regarding, dated 2/19 of 2025, regarding a 2012 Dodge Durango from the police department, but he's asking to request to sell that vehicle. Chief Shadle?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is a vehicle we inherited in July of '24 from the police department. We got a few months out of it. Normally, obviously, when a car comes from the police department, it has high mileage and high hours, but we try to utilize it for training. So anytime someone has out-of-town training or going to a MABUS meeting or something like that, instead of taking their personal car, they would utilize that. So unfortunately, it has a number of issues. At first, the street department said that we had to replace quite a bit of the suspension components. Parts alone were over $3,000. And at that time, he said, well, we should probably, I don't know if I would put that much into it because it is unlikely to continue on after that. So, but shortly after that, we were having issues with the transmission. When I was investigating the transmission issues to verify it had a major electrical malfunction. So my recommendation is to request a motion to authorize the sale of the 2012 Dodge Durango by any legal means, and Clay from the street department said that he would be able to auction it in a public auction, so.
Okay. All right, if I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Peterson, second by Alderman Fleury. Thank you both. Any questions regarding the sale, the authorization to sell the 2012 Dodge Durango? VIN number 1C4RDJAG 1CC253571. Any questions, any comments regarding that? Can we give it to the Public Works Department?
No, believe it or not, we declined this one.
Oh, I believe it. Thank you. I guess that's a no. All right, if there are no other questions, we have the motion on the floor. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Item E, Belvedere Area Chamber of Commerce Street closure request for Buchanan Street Markets. In your packet is a memo dated January 30th, 2025, from Amy Nord, Executive Director of the Belvedere Area Chamber of Commerce. And I'll read it. To it may concern. I'm writing to request a temporary street closure for the Buchanan Street Markets on May 30th, June 20th, and July 25th from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. The closures are needed to ensure pedestrian safety during these events, which aim to boost foot traffic to downtown businesses and provide entertainment for the Belvedere community. We request that that Buchanan Street be closed from State Street to Main Street, as well as Whitney Boulevard, from the West Municipal Parking Lot entrance to the lot west of Buchanan Street Pub. See the attached map between the hours of 4 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. If I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Stevens, second by Alderman Peterson. Thank you both. Any questions, any comments regarding the motion on the floor? Feel free to speak out. Alderman Peterson?
Mayor, you generally get the barricades up, the crash barricades up. Is that going to happen with these events also?
They do barricade that street on both ends of it, so yeah, we have plenty of barricades, so we will barricade them. Brent, did you have anything else?
No, yes, we will provide the barricades, do the barricades.
Thank you.
Seems to be a trend lately that there's problems with it.
Unfortunately, it does. Okay, any other questions, any other comments on the motion on the floor? Feel free to ask. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion passed, thank you. And then also, they are requesting large trash receptacles, which goes without saying, at several locations along the path that's provided in the sketch. And we have item F, again, dated January 30th, 2025, a memo from Executive Director of the Belvedere Area Chamber of Commerce, Amy Nord. And it says, to whom it may concern, I am writing to request a temporary street closure for the downtown business trick-or-treat event on Wednesday, October 29th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Last year, this event was a huge success, attracting nearly 5,000 visitors to the downtown area. The purpose is to increase foot traffic for local businesses while offering a fun experience for Belvedere residents. To ensure pedestrian safety, we request the closure of State Street from Lincoln Avenue to First Street, as well as Logan Avenue between State Street and Main Street, see attached map, on October 29th, 2025, from 3 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Additionally, of course, same thing, they request the placement of large trash receptacles at 6 locations along the route. If I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Stevens, second by Alderwoman Gramkowski. Thank you, both. Any questions, any comments on the motion on the floor? Feel free to ask. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, and if, of course, this will come back to you on the council level, so if there's any hiccups or anybody has any information that may be other than what we voted on tonight, you can come back and certainly bring it up. So, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposed, motion passed, thank you. And we have item G, which again is dated January 30th, a memo 2025 from Executive Director Amy Nord with the Belvedere Area Chamber of Commerce. To whom it may concern, I'm requesting a temporary street closure for the annual Hometown Christmas event on Friday, December 5th from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. This event is always a community favorite, attracting nearly 12,000 visitors to our downtown area. Its purpose is to drive traffic to local businesses while providing a festive experience for Belvedere residents. To ensure the safety of attendees, we request the closure of State Street from Lincoln Avenue to First Street, Logan Avenue from State Street to Main Street, and First Street from State Street to Garfield Avenue, see attached map, on December 5th, 2025, from the hours of 3 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Additionally, we request a placement of large trash receptacles at 10 locations along the route in front of you. If I could have a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Peterson, second by Alderwoman Graham-Kowski. Thank you both. Is there any other questions, comments, concerns regarding the motion on the floor? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passed, thank you. And item 3, Finance and Personnel Unfinished Business, we have none. Item 4, Finance and Personnel New Business. Item A, Finance Department Update. Finance Director Turnipseed, good evening.
Good evening. I just want to thank council and department heads for participating in the budget presentation on February 15th. I'm just going to go over the next steps of the budget process, which starts with tonight. It's on the agenda for discussion. And then on March 10th, 2025, it will be on the Committee of the Whole meeting. We will be introducing the fiscal year 26 budget ordinance. Then at the City Council meeting on March 24th will be the first reading of the budget ordinance. And then on April 7th will be the second reading of the budget ordinance along with the public hearing. This concludes my update. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. If there's any questions for Finance Director Turnipseed, feel free to ask. I know she'll be able to answer. Okay. Thank you. And item B, fiscal year 26 budget discussion. Anything, Director Turnipseed?
No, I was just going to open it up if anybody had any questions.
Okay. If anybody has any questions regarding the budget that we had the retreat at, I know there were some aldermen that weren't able to make it, that weren't present, but you know, for those of you that were, if there's any questions, we'll try and take them and answer them right now. You'll also have an opportunity when this comes back up to discuss that as well. So, any questions, feel free to ask. I thought the budget that we had presented, we had worked on with the department heads, was prudent, certainly frugal, and I want to thank Finance Director Turnipseed for doing such a fine job, because it's tough. She hasn't been in this position very long, but we've had extremely great fortune whenever we've hired finance directors, and certainly you would count as one of them. So thank you so much. Appreciate it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. If not, we will move on. Item 5, under other unfinished business, we have none. Item 6, other new business. Item A, Deer Hills 1 and 2, Deer Hills 2 pre-annexation agreement. In your packet was a memo from City Attorney Mike Drella, dated 2/18 of 25, regarding Deer Hills 1 and 2, Deer Hills 2 pre-annexation agreements. He has attached in that memo some items that I know he wants to discuss tonight. So I will turn it over to the city attorney, Drellum.
Sorry for the light bedside table reading that was in the package this week, for the very lengthy memo. Again, what we're talking about is this area of territory up in here, which you'll see is not connected to the city. Currently, it's not what's called contiguous. That is the area of land that was developed under city code and auspices starting in 2005 pursuant to a pre-annexation agreement between the city of Belvedere and Landmark Developments. And of course, all the future owners of the property are also now owners under that agreement. That agreement, as we've discussed in the past, expires this coming June. As the council is aware, and we've talked about in the past, I don't want to get into too much detail on this aspect now, but the city for 20 years has been working on trying to get that property contiguous to the city so that we can annex it before the June deadline coming up. You'll recall that's why we talked to the Park District, and they graciously worked with us to annex certain land, kind of kitty corner from that territory to the city as one step of gaining that contiguity. Unfortunately, the other intervening parcel has not yet fallen into line. So as we've discussed in the past, I have drafted a new pre-annexation agreement that we could send to literally every single property owner in that gray area. 200, I think, something like that, property owners would be getting these pre-annexation agreements. Effectively what that does, and it's not a very good legal phrase or term, but one of the property owners in Deer Hills 2, that's that northernmost subdivision on the east side of Beaver Valley Road, called it the kick the can down the road plan. Essentially, that's what it is. If we don't get contiguity before this one expires, you just do a new agreement, kicks it down to the future, keeps everybody in the exact same position they're in now, where we'll be able to annex in the future if it is contiguous. The property owners will not have issues with their zoning, with their ability to market the property in the future, with their ability to rebuild. If there was a calamity, it basically preserves everybody's rights as they were in the past. So, before you is an annexation agreement that basically keeps the status quo going forward for anybody that signs that agreement. There was one provision that I put in there, and this one could get a little bit convoluted and complicated. If you go to the very end of your portion of the packet dealing with the pre-annexation agreements, it comes after the impact fees. There's two spreadsheets that relate to Fire Protection District 2, FPD 2. State law requires every municipality that annexes territory that's within a fire protection district to pay the fire protection district an amount of money in the first equal to 100% of the previous year's tax receipts for the fire protection district for that territory. Year 2, 80%, year 3, 60, year 4, 40, year 5, 20. Sounds like our enterprise zone a little bit. At any rate, the purpose for that, and it's in the fire protection district code, is that when we take land that's in a fire protection district, it disconnects from their tax base and goes to ours. And they have no control of that. So the General Assembly said, all right, cities and villages, when you do this, you owe them a little bit of money. Historically, we have passed that fee, because it's on the municipality to pay that. We have historically passed that fee on to the developers, because they're the ones seeking to annex and develop, and we put that on there. So the agreement that I've drafted, just like every other annexation agreement done since really 2004 or 5 timeframe, has a clause in it that says the owner will pay that fee. The problem in this scenario is that we're not really dealing with developers, we're dealing with individual lot owners. In most cases, or many cases, Mr. and Mrs. Smith that happen to build a house there. In some cases, it's vacant lots that were bought up by a builder that hasn't built yet. But that's who we're dealing with. So what I did is I prepared these two spreadsheets. One of the questions raised when I met with homeowners out there, I met with the Homeowners Association for the southern subdivision as well as the one for the northern subdivision. The one question they had, concern they had with doing these agreements was, well, we don't want to pay $4,000 or $5,000 in taxes when the statute puts that on the city, and we didn't know we were signing up for that when we did these annexation agreements. So I did some math using Excel, and in front of you are two spreadsheets. The first page of spreadsheet deals with all the lots on the east side of Beaver Valley Road. The second page deals with the Deer Woods 2 subdivision, which is the higher end or higher price point homes in the attached to Deer Woods. You can't even get to it without driving through the Deer Woods subdivision to get back into the city or the pre-annexed area. And what I did was I took, in using the assessor's database, the Boone County Assessor's database, and our GIS maps, tried to get the assessed value for every developed lot. For example, in Deer Hills, in the Deer Hills 2 subdivisions. I didn't get all of them because there have been some that have been built since the assessor's records were available to me. But I try to get an average fire protection district tax currently paid for all those lots. And then I said, well, what would it be if all the lots were fully developed, artificially increasing the number? Because what we're worried about is if this doesn't annex in within 10 or 20 years, they could build all the houses, what would the cost look like if it was fully developed? So what I found out was, if you look at that first page, the average tax paid to the Fire Protection District 2 in the Deer Hills Phase 1 and Phase 2 was $706. That's on the bottom of the page. The average EAV is $115,000 and change. Going up to the right side of the paper towards the top, what I determined was that the average total of fees that would be owed to the Fire Protection District 2 per lot, and again, this is an average, assuming full development, is $2,138.76. This is using 2023 numbers, by the way, because obviously 23 was paid last summer. This year's tax bills aren't out yet, so they're slightly delayed. And the total cost of paying the Fire Protection District 2 for Deer Hills 1, Deer Hills 2 would be $423,474. In the first year, if we did it on the descending scale, it'd be roughly $140,000 that would have to be paid. So then I thought, well, what would happen if we took and multiplied the city's tax rate as if they were in the city against their average EAV for the subdivision? And based on the 2023 numbers, the city would have received $280,000 in tax receipts from those two subdivisions. So essentially, just under 2 years' worth of tax receipts would pay for the Fire Protection District fee. Again, these are estimates because this assumes full build-out, and they're nowhere near full build-out. So what that means is the cost would be cheaper, as would the tax receipts. But it gives you an idea of what that ratio looks like, if you follow. Roughly, no matter when you do it, assuming these ratios hold up, you're looking at about 2 years of tax receipts to pay off the cost of buying out the Fire Protection District. If you go to the second page, you'll see a huge difference in price point for the homes. Homes in there routinely exceed $1 million. The total average Fire Protection District tax, the average per dwelling unit, is $2,229 per lot. So obviously much higher than in Deer Hills. Similarly, though, the average EAV is $355,000 and change. The city's anticipated tax rates based on 23, if they had been annexed, is about $180,000. It's a much smaller subdivision. And the total of paying all the taxes on it, if we were to pay the Fire Protection District, is $275,000. So again, roughly 2 years to pay it off, a little bit less than 2 years to pay it off if we were to, the city were to absorb those fees. The reason why I did that was to see if the council was interested in that. The current drafted agreement that you have in front of you does put the onus upon the property owner to pay that fee. But I didn't know, it quite frankly might convince more people to sign it quicker if the city absorbed the fee, but you're not obligated to do that. You could say, no, you're not in the city yet, and so when you annex, you'll have to pay that fee. That's completely up to the council. I would point out that the city of Belvedere has been responding to medical calls in that area for the last 20 years. Quite frankly, when I talked to property owners out there, they had no clue they weren't in the city. They didn't have a clue. Which, I mean, the funny story I may have told the council once was several years ago, I think a couple of elections ago already, I had an irate phone call from a person that lived out there who went to try and vote for mayor at the time and was yelling at me for about 10 minutes about why couldn't he vote for mayor. That's taxation without representation. I finally got a word edgewise. I said, look at your tax bill. You don't pay property taxes. He said, I don't? I said, no. Oh, great, thank you. And he hung up. So they have been getting those services. But obviously when we go out to structure fire, District 2 shows up on automatic dispatch as well as us. So really their services wouldn't be changing one aspect to the other. But I'll open up to questions and then discussion about how you want to handle this fire protection district fee.
Alderman Peterson?
It seems like it's not equitable to the city taxpayers then if we gotta pay the difference money to District 2 for services that they no longer will provide, and then we'll be stretching our services to start running out there. I mean, that's number one. And then number two, this doesn't trigger until it actually does annex. Is there any chance that all the legislature will revoke that requirement? I mean, I don't know how often this happens in the state of Illinois, if there's a lot of annexations going on currently, but is there a prospect, number one, that the law can be amended to end that, because otherwise city taxpayers are getting double dipped, and the Deer Hill residents aren't really getting anything extra because they're getting a fire response from the city that's further away, relatively speaking, than somebody in town. And then number two, I would also say we probably don't need to execute this immediately for every parcel. I mean, could we set up a let's make a deal where if you sign this annexation agreement now, some of the strategic lots, we will do that. We will cover that cost for you, because can't we force annex some of those, the people that don't want to do that? If there's strategic parcels, can't we, once they're surrounded, we can start bringing them in?
All right, you asked about 4 questions. I'll try to get them all answered. First question was about the state statute. I would predict a 0% chance of that being repealed. It's been on the books for decades. Has not shown any place of changing. Quite frankly, municipal attorneys frequently didn't even know about it because it's buried in the Fire Protection District Code, not in the municipal code. To that end, in the early to mid 2000s, there was a attorney that was real bright that did fire protection district stuff that realized that nobody knew about it. And so he called up a whole bunch of fire protection districts and said, let me represent you, and I will go after all this money the city's owed you. And started suing cities left and right for this money. So they're aware of it. That part's not going to change. It is what it is. Second part of that, next question. Actually, I'm going to jump ahead to the forced annexation. No, we have no ability to force annex it, at least at this point. You are correct that as we do annex portions of it, if you get to the point where you surround a couple, 3 lots at a time, then yes, you could use forcible annexation at that point. However, at that point, you don't have an annexation agreement with them, so the city's paying that fee anyway. In other words, it doesn't help us out one way or the other. If we get to the point where we have small areas surrounded, it might make sense to force annex it anyway, just to get cohesive boundaries and get everything set up. But no, as it sits right now, we couldn't do it because it has to be less than 60 acres in size and fully surrounded.
After the fact, after we done skipped the dominoes to start falling.
You'd be surprised at the maps I've drawn with Grant Anderson's help in our GIS department trying to figure all that out. And I don't want to get into it tonight, but there's some strategic reasons why it probably won't happen based upon ownership of lots. The next part or next question you had was having to do with kind of pick and choosing different annexation agreements. Yeah, you can certainly do that. I would recommend against it. I would recommend it against it for several reasons. One, you're dealing with residents. And you start favoring one resident over another, even though we don't look at it that way, you're going to have angry residents, which means the mayor's office is getting a ton of phone calls. The second reason you don't want to do that is, frankly, if I can do it, I'd like to keep all the annexation agreements exactly the same. Because you're talking about, I think it was, do I have it on the spreadsheet? 100 and, I think it was like 120-something lots, 198 lots total in Deer Hills Phase 1 and 2. I think there's about 41 lots in Deer Woods 2. Asking the finance department, asking the building department to keep track of that many different annexation agreements, excuse me, in a small area, would be very difficult to do. We've seen problems like that happen in the past, where you sign an agreement and 15 years later, everybody's forgotten about it. And all of a sudden, you find out you didn't do something you're supposed to do. So I'd recommend against that to the extent we can, but yes, you could legally do that.
Alderman Peterson?
And I, just to throw out the first point again, it seemed like the city would have a cause of action in an equity proceeding, because we are, city residents are getting double dipped to provide, to pay twice for the fire protection for the same property, and we're paying District 2 while we're having to overlap it with our own. We're already paying good taxes to overlap it with our own public safety, and it just seems like it's a complaint in equity, I would think.
No, there's absolutely no lawsuit that we could file at all that would handle this. It's been state statute for years, and it's been litigated, and it's lost. Keeping in mind, we're only talking about that 5-year period with respect to those residences, and because once you're in the city, obviously you don't pay that tax anymore. So for example, you and Mayor Morris are not paying that tax. If anybody would have a complaint like that, it would be the property owner who we impose it upon, because now they're paying 2 different taxes, where otherwise they wouldn't be. And the only reason we'd be able to do that is through an agreement, like an annexation agreement.
Anybody else have any comments, any questions regarding this issue? Feel free to ask.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It really isn't, I don't know who thought of this, this statute that decides that, you are going to pay a fire district, a fire protection district, you're going to have to pay a fee upon annexation. I would agree, and I understand what you're saying, Attorney Drella, but it really isn't fair. It isn't fair to the taxpayers on two ways. One is that we do respond out there, don't we, Chief? We currently respond, and we have, right? Yeah, so we make calls out there for service. We provide, we do provide services too, water and sewer, but yet we don't receive any tax money, any property tax money, which, it doesn't seem right. I do agree with Alderman Peterson that it would be nice if the legislature would understand that is double dipping, certainly of the taxpayers. And if there is no other way, that's the dilemma that we have here tonight. If there is no other way to coax them into annexing to the city, then you have to look at the bare financials, which, according to what Attorney Drella had drafted us on the last 2 pages, is about a 2-year repayment before you get that money back, if you use that as a carrot to get them to annex. So.
And I apologize, I don't want to belabor this point. No, we do not receive property taxes. Territories that are subject to an annexation agreement, the utility taxes are imposed upon them, so we are receiving taxes. Currently for our utility tax on natural gas and electricity, Comcast franchise fee. There's no commercial out there now, but a portion of that is zone commercial. We would also get sales taxes out of it. So if the annexation agreement dies and there's no replacement, we lose whatever we're getting out of there now, and I have no idea how much that is. I have no way of calculating that myself. And then keep in mind, if you say no to changing this and keeping the fee upon them, I'll send that out to them. They may or may not sign it. If they don't, they may be back at our doorstep in 5, 10 years asking for us to do it at that point. I'd rather not piecemeal it that much, but if we have to, we have to. If there's no annexation agreement out there, we would lose the utility tax, we would lose the Comcast franchise fee. We would still have to provide services to the roads, because for whatever reason, we own those roads now. But they would have to pay a little bit more in water expenses because of the surcharge for non-residents on water, so.
And the only other avenue that we would have is to have them be contiguous where we could then force them in, correct?
If some miracle happens and we have them contiguous before June of '25, my life will be very complicated, but I'll be sending out, 200 plus another 50 letters with petitions for annex saying, sign these now and get them back to me. And if they don't, we'll have an awful lot of lawsuits forcing them to sign them. I'm not looking forward to that, but it'll be what it'll be.
So we inherited a pre-annexation agreement that's now come due after 20 years, is what it amounts to. I'm sure it was hopeful that we would probably go ahead and have contiguity with this development, but here we are now. It hasn't occurred, so. If there's any other questions, Alderman Peterson?
Hey, just to follow up with the chiefs, do we take responsibility then for each and every public safety call that's generated out there? That's us and nobody. District 2 maybe comes as a follow-up and the county deputies show up also, or is it just all a city response?
The response would be similar as if it was in the city. So it would be, police and fire would respond, medical calls if there's a fire, the auto aid agreements that we have with our partners, all the other departments would come, but it would be no different than if there was a call in Distillery, which is pretty close across the street there from there, and it would be no different than the response there, just like is in the city.
If that wasn't the case, I would be willing to say then, just let the chips fall where they may, because it diminishes. If we have to start putting public safety services out there, it diminishes what's available to the rest of the community, but it's already happening then.
We've been doing it for over 20 years. Oh, I had 20 years now.
You're exactly right. There's no, the only diminishment would be as if it didn't get annexed.
And of course, both of these haven't been built out yet, so the more that they get built out, the more cost for service you'll have, and the more, this is a bad deal for the taxpayers here.
The benefit to the city actually following through annexing will be the increased tax revenue. The outline of that on those spreadsheets, whether that's enough to offset services, it's no different than any other subdivision in the city. The other benefit is, frankly, we own the roads, and we're going to have to maintain them. Those were accepted by the city after construction back in the mid-2000s. So if we don't annex them, there's no tax base to help pay for the roads, where if it's annexed, there would be. The difficulty the property owners find themselves in, and I've explained this to them, is that if the property is not annexed by June, and if they don't have an annexation agreement, they no longer have city zoning. And if they don't have city zoning, it defaults to county zoning. And county does not have zoning for lots their size. They might for Deer Woods 2, the bigger state sections. But for Deer Hills 1 and Deer Hills 2, there's no zoning for it, which puts them in the trick bag of being able to market their lots in the future, refinance, rebuild on Calamity. At that point, they may or may not be coming back to us to get help with their zoning, or the county can simply grant them a variance. But
Alderman Peterson?
Then if I may, Director Anderson, then do we plow out there then too? We plow and patch and?
We do everything, yep.
Is there anything that says that, we don't have a levy then, we're not getting any kind of levy for any of those services. Is there anything that says we must continue to provide all that if nobody wants to update these agreements? you hate to leave anybody, but I think the question needs to be asked, what do we owe them?
Well, you don't owe them anything other than the fact that because we own the roads, if you fail to maintain them to a point, at some point, the city becomes liable for damage or injury on those roads that we haven't maintained. It's no different than the state or the county or us owning a road that's within our jurisdiction. We actually have other rights of way that are not entirely in our jurisdiction. And if you don't maintain those roads, you could be liable for damages on them.
Could we vacate, I mean, would we vacate? Otherwise, if we can't make this happen, would we give up ownership, maintenance, and jurisdiction?
No. To vacate a road, it has to be a road that you don't need anymore. So example, when you vacate an alley, each half of the alley goes to the adjoining property owners, and it's closed. It's no longer right of way. This is the only way they have of accessing their homes. So we can't vacate it. And there's no mechanism we can force the township to take it.
Well, maybe not vacate, but like what the state did when they gave us State Street through town and the State Street Bridge and everything, and they made US 20 go elsewhere. I mean, would we be able to do what the state did to us?
No, that was basically, they built a new route to replace the existing, and then the existing was transferred over to us. But for the same as what the city attorney's alluding to, we could not accept State Street because of the access, because it was of the use that was there.
It's possible to work out an agreement with another taxing district to take over the road, but I don't know why they'd agree to do that.
Belvedere Township, since we pay taxes to them?
That's what I was thinking, but again, what's the incentive for them to take over a maintenance liability that they don't currently have?
We won't throw them out.
So,
So I guess what I'm looking for tonight, I put a recommended motion at the bottom of the memo. And you'll see there's portion bold, it says with or without. I guess first, the thing we have to do is there a general consensus whether you want to leave the obligation for the fire protection district fees on the property owners, or do you want the city to absorb that at the time of annexation?
Alderman Fleury?
Thank you, Mayor. So earlier, you said that typically this fire district fee gets passed on to the developer, and that's who's paying it?
No, that's not the state typical. That's what we've done in Belvedere through our annexation agreement process. We have no legal way of doing that other than by an agreement from the property owner.
Right, so normally it's passed on to the developer, that who's pays it, but now in this case, we're talking about individual citizens. But in reality, when it's passed on to the developer, I mean, it's really passed on to taxpayers. They just don't see it as a $3,000 increase. They're just gonna see it as a home increase or whatever the price of that good is, like anything else, right?
However they build it into their pricing on lots and homes is what it is. Keep in mind that what I've got in front of you, I don't want to make this more confusing, is for every single lot out there. Many of the lots are developed with homes. Many of them are currently vacant, owned by builders. And there's nothing to Alderman Peterson's point. There's nothing that would prevent you from saying, look, if you've already got a house on there at the time of annexation, you don't have to pay it. If you don't have a house at the time of annexation, you do. You can do it that way as well. My fear is, though, that frankly, staff in 10 or 15 years dealing with multiple different annexation agreements will have a difficult time actually administering the program, but it's legally possible. But yes, in answer to your question, you're dealing with individual lot owners, not an actual developer.
Does that answer your question, Alderman Fleury? Okay. Anybody else? Alderman
How about a
Peterson?
compromise then? And up to half, up to a share as a fallback?
The goal is to send these out and not negotiate. Just so you know, but and I'm not going to send them out right away either. What the hope is, in the next few weeks, we'll have a very good idea of whether it's going to actually annex before the 25th. My guess at this point is it won't. I'm sorry, before June 15th. At that point, I'd like to send these out and get these in people's hands. We don't have to, we could wait, but the longer we wait, it creates confusion as to when do utilities cut off and all that other kind of thing. And I wouldn't be surprised if some do and some don't, frankly. And it will cause a mismatch, so to speak, out there. And I'll have to talk to the chiefs, and I'll have to talk to the sheriff's office and District 2 about how they want to handle response if you have a mismatched situation where Mike Drella's house has a pre-annexation agreement and Clint Morris's house doesn't. Who's going to respond? And I see he's shaking his head already. We're going to have an internal conversation about whether we're simply going to say, county, you respond to everything, and we'll take care of quality of life stuff with our code enforcement for the properties that are ours. But that's a question that we don't have to decide tonight. That's a question that we can have with the county's emergency response teams in the near future.
You know, the fact that this city of Belvedere gets caught picking up a tab and then for residents that, because of a deal that was struck in 2005, which in hindsight is a terrible deal. It's a terrible business agreement on behalf of the taxpayers of Belvedere, because now it comes time that we're in a trick bag. We can't, either we have to court them, we own the roads, we provide services, we provide police and fire protection, but yet we are the ones that are forced because of an annexation agreement that just now has come into fruition, and we have no, we have a carrot, we can, you know, we can be offering them money, which we're already giving them services, we're already giving them water and sewer, but yet we don't have a hammer to try and get them, it appears we don't have a hammer to try and get them to agree to annex to the city, and even though they have all the services. So it was a bad deal. I guess 20 years seems like a long time, but unfortunately, what was good in 2005 isn't good in 2025, and here we are. I would like to be able to get them to annex, you know, but it's up to the council on how we go about it. Either we can use, you know, I don't, you know, the city attorney and I haven't had a chance to discuss this, but I have been hopeful that we would be able to have contiguity.
Again, I don't want to get to that right now.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, I do, because that would be the easiest way. Now, whether or not we're gonna talk about that right now, that's fine, but that would be the easiest way, because it satisfies the fact then that we can go ahead and finally bill them property taxes for the services they receive. And that's how it should work. But I understand what you're saying, I get it, but I think the whole picture needs to be brought out, so.
Maybe Alderman Peterson, and maybe I didn't follow him early on, maybe he had not a pretty good idea. Actually, I spoke in the negative, I'm sorry. Maybe he had a good idea. Maybe I sent out the first batch with a, if this accepted by kind of letter in it. And then for those that don't, too bad, so sad, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more. The difficulty is you do have then residents, but if that will be calling saying, well, wait, that's not fair. But if it's very clear up front that that's what we're doing, we could always approach it that way.
That may be, you know, I don't know, that may be the carrot that would be the one that maybe some people would find that appealing. I don't think anybody who lives out there, like you had said, attorney, that they realize that they weren't in Belvedere, you know, by any means. We plow the roads, we provide, you know, police and fire protection, and we provide water and sewer. I mean, so in fairness, I guess that may not be a bad idea at all. Alderman Fleury?
Thank you, Mayor. So the current annexation, the property owners are just on the hook for this thing. And then the redrafting is what you're proposing perhaps putting in that we would cover it.
I'm posing the question to the council. I don't have skin in the game one way or the other, frankly.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, like, so the current annexation that I'm sure obviously as property owners, they signed with the 18 other thousand papers that you signed at closing and maybe didn't look finally that if it ever gets annexed, you're going to owe this amount of money. But it was presented to them when they were property owners originally.
No, it wasn't. They had no clue. For whatever reason, I don't know why, when people bought the lots out there, our annexation agreement was never presented at closing to any of them. I shouldn't say any of them. The ones I've talked to, they never knew about it. I actually did some checking and talked to some local attorneys, and it never popped up on title commitments. And I don't know why.
Alderwoman Frank?
Thank you. I was just going to say, if you're going to send them a letter that it should be in clear, basic language before you get into the lawyer lingo, so they understand.
Letters in your packet.
Okay, so,
And if you don't like it.
because
give me
they
a
need
call
to
and
understand
I'll
what they're
modify it.
getting already.
So I guess the question is, for getting the fire protection district fee portion, is there a general consensus that you'd support new annexation agreements for the properties out there? One side's nodding their head yes, the other side's just sitting there stoically.
Alderman Peterson.
Need a motion then for that?
Well, and the next question is gonna be, is there a preference of waiving the fire protection district fee for everybody, not waiving it for everybody, or using a carrot and stick approach where if you sign this document, get it back to us by a date certain, we'll waive it. If you don't, we don't.
So basically, they'd start paying city taxes, and then that tax money, no, they wouldn't start paying city
Not
taxes.
until they're next.
Not till they're next. And if we next them, and they start paying this taxes.
The fee comes
then-
due.
Then, that money could be used to give District Two.
Yes, absolutely.
That'd
That's
be-
what, that whole numerical
Yes,
analysis I did.
That'd be better, We'd pay the extra tax for them, and while we collect their property taxes,
That's what the waiver
that
means.
would be a nice,
That's the
they
carrot.
can,
That's the carrot.
That's the waiver.
that's the carrot, yeah. Then they wouldn't be having asked to pay more on top of the city taxes.
Why don't I do this?
Yeah,
At the bottom of that first page, at the bottom of the last page of the memo, there's a motion. It's a motion to approve the proposed annexation agreement template. And I'll throw something out there. Motion to approve the proposed annexation agreement template without the fire protection district fee for those that file a petition to annex and a signed annexation agreement no later than, let's use August 1 of 2025. I just picked that out of thin air, by the way. For those that file a petition and sign an annexation agreement after August 1st, 2025, the fire protection district fee would be imposed upon the property owner. So everybody understand what I'm doing there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does anybody want to make that motion?
Motion by Alderman Peterson, second by Alderman Stevens.
And just so you know, what's gonna happen is, when I do send them out, I'm not gonna do it right away. Again, I'm waiting on some word on what Mayor Morse was talking, I demoted
Just
you.
demoted me. That's okay.
Was speaking about earlier. But I'll send those out as they come in. I'll probably wait till we have a bunch in and then come back to the council for first reading. That's effectively approving at committee level. They'll come back for first reading on those, but I want to do several at a time. I don't want to do one at a time because we have to do a publication of the paper, so I'm trying to minimize publication costs. So we'll get groups of them together and come through with a group at a time.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor. If there's any other discussion, any other comments, now be the time. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
aye.
And any opposed? Motion passed. We'll see how it goes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, City Attorney.
Sorry about the length of that discussion.
It's not an easy one, that's for sure, and it's unfortunate that here we are. We've probably never, in '05, they probably never thought we'd be here, and that property would be annexed, it would be contiguous, but it's not.
I really apologize to the fire chief because I give him a hard time about speaking for too long, but I think that was about half an hour.
All right, well, thank you. Item B, we have executive session pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act to consider appointment, employment, and compensation of a specific employee. If I could have a motion to move into executive session. Motion by Alderwoman Frank, second by Alderman Peterson. Thank you both. In order to move into executive session, the clerk, those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. As the clerk calls the roll, please.
Albertini,
Aye.
Flurry,
Aye.
Frank,
Aye.
Freeman. Sorry. Gramkowski,
Aye.
McGee,
Aye.
Peterson,
Aye.
Stevens,
Aye.
7 in favor.
Okay, if you give me a moment, I'll get us off the air.
Okay. For the record,